Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. You might encounter strong language. Oops. We also want to be clear that the things we say are our opinions and in should no way be taken as medical health or dietary advice. We also are aware that we have certain privileged experiences and therefore we are not able to be representative. And we don't even aim to be representative of all the things that people have lived and felt that we have not. I'm fat, and I still wonder sometimes whether I should try getting pregnant. So,
I'm fat, and I don't have to listen to your shit. So,
I'm fat, and I do call out fat phobia in my partners. So,
I'm fat, and I expect you to work on your fat phobia. So,
I'm fat, and it does hurt that my family is still fat phobic. So,
I'm fat, and you can't tell me how to live my life. So,
welcome to Fatso, the podcast where we talk about the joys and sorrows of being fat women in India. Heavy on the joy. I'm Pallavi.
And I'm Ameya. And today, in our mini-series on handling the world, we are going to talk about family. Family. Can't live with them, can't live without them.
You do realize family is an F word.
You are correct. It is an F word, but then so is friends. So
Oops.
It's a slippery slip. And so is fatso. Right, so family. Family and fat people. What is it about family and fat people? I mean, yes, I guess it's because they are also, of course, deeply trained and conditioned by fat-phobic society, etc. But enough with the concern trolling. I need to monitor everything you do. I'll give you guilty face or looks. Why? Because I'm worried about your health. I'm emotionally abusing you and manipulating you for your own good. I do it because I love you. I want you to starve yourself and develop eating disorders just because I love you so much. So fucked up. Seriously, I mean, the health myth never has a greater hold than it does upon family. They're all like, no, you will get diabetes. I'm like, bhai, if you can see the future, will you please tell me what stocks I can invest in now?
Yeah.
So I can be a millionaire and then pay for my diabetes? You say, no, that's not we want to. Oh, you'll get heart disease. Oh my God. It's like family members lose the ability to think critically. And it's just the outside of enough. Because for absolutely no, I have this aunt, okay? God, she was a nightmare. And she would every time she saw me, she'd be like, oh, look, you've put on weight, huh? And I swear to God, she was losing her hair and it really bothered her. And I was super tempted to turn around and say, yeah, but at least I still have my hair. You know what I mean? How would she have felt if every time said, oh my God, you're losing your hair, are you well? Are you sure you don't have cancer? But you might have a disease. Oh my God, what? No one will marry you. Okay, she was already married. Your husband will leave you because you're losing your hair. People would say, what a bitch. How could you talk like that to somebody? Have some sympathy, have some empathy. But no, if you're a fat person, sab kuch chalega. And essentially, what does it become? What does it become in the hands of the family? Body shaming just becomes a way to control you. All those kids who are like, you can't eat this, you can't wear that, you can't do this, you can't go there, you have to do this, you have to do that. Oh, because you're fat. Oh, you know what? Let me just get you married off to this horrible person because at least he wants to marry you.
I know.
And then you yourself are always thinking, oh my God, I'm always useless. I'm not good enough. I have no value because my own damn mother doesn't love me. So what are you supposed to do with that? Right? God, family and fat phobia. Oof.
Yeah, and the thing is that it gets messed up in our heads also because one, family is that one safety net, which is basic. And in a lot of cases, it stays that way. I mean, in most cases, right? Family is that, I've heard so many people say, whatever may happen, yes, my family is blah, blah, but at the end of the day, they're my family and, they're always there for me. And
it's a different kind of social conditioning. The idea that your family is your social net, and it's also one of the things that stops us from breaking away from toxic family.
True.
Right?
True.
So, but yeah, I get you. The point
No.
is that we are deeply programmed to think that, yeah, at least your family will always be there for you.
Correct. So it's that basic, I think that's why it's so important to understand fat phobia in the context of family.
Yeah.
Because when something is so basic in terms of your foundation for safety,
Yeah.
which is so important, we're all
Yeah.
wanting to be safe. Everything we do is about feeling safe, right? And when it is such a basic foundation, and then that family becomes fat phobic, or or that family is fat phobic and says those things to you, it's just killer, because
Yeah.
that is a place you cannot escape.
And it's a place that you cannot rationalize away.
No.
Like, you can't be like, oh, this person jealous of me. Oh, this person. It's like, no, it's my mother. My mother thinks I'm shit.
Yeah. And the thing is, then you feel obligated also. Ki kal ko kuch ho gaya, to my family will be right. And they are the ones who will take care of me.
Right.
So, oh my God, it becomes such a mishmash of horrible thoughts. And I speak of this from experience, because as long as my husband kept telling me about my weight and how I'd fall sick and stuff like that, and I was like, he's the one who's going to take care of me if something happens to me, right?
Yeah.
So it was always this added layer of stress and concern and worry, and because he used to say things like, you're a ticking time bomb. Like when I would argue, and when I would say, but this is fine and that is fine, and I don't have to go to a doctor, and blah, 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 he would say, but you're a ticking time bomb. Because that was his conditioning. That was what he'd been taught. That's what society thinks.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So it's fucked up in that way, because that family is your foundation, right? It's what keeps you standing to a large extent.
Guys,
No, even if...
Pallavi is all about the F words today. Did you hear that? Is that the first time she's sworn on the podcast? It might be.
What nonsense. I've sworn many times. Go listen to our podcast.
Okay.
Miss Editor. Anyway, then the other thing, now again, from the neuroscience perspective, family systems are where your basic conditioning happens, right? They're the foundation for your thought process. They're the foundation for your belief system. They're the ones who set all those neural networks in place in the first place, including language and a whole lot of other things. And if, therefore, your family is fat phobic and tells you things like your body is not good enough, or you don't look okay, or we will only love you if you're in a certain kind of body, which is basically the translation of, I'm worried for you and stuff like that, then you have that neural pathway which is so firmly set about the fact that as long as you have extra stuff on your body, or as long as you do not look like the, cookie cutter model that the family says should be the way you look, you're not good enough, you are a terrible person, you will never succeed, etc., etc. And then, just as I've spoken about, this neural network then becomes the framework for how you look at life. So you will judge everybody based on that.
Correct.
And most importantly, you will judge yourself based on that. And this is something that you have no escape from.
Yeah, and the thing is, all this shit gets set in you before the age of 6.
Exactly. And it's like a cage, but it's in your own head. So you are in a cage in your own head, looking at the world in that light.
And not even realizing that it's a cage, because it's all you ever knew.
Of course.
Right? And it's incredible how when you try to fight back, people are so closed about it. They just don't want to hear it, because at the end of the day, and I think we've said this many, many times, the radical idea that fat is not evil, or being fat is not a completely disastrous thing that robs you of all human value, goes so far against their own training, because fat is the other that makes them okay.
Yeah.
At least I'm not fat.
Yeah.
You see, I'm not like that, so I'm a good person.
No, and now the third thing. So one is they're your safety net. Second is they're your basic foundation for your beliefs and thought process. And third is you love them.
Ugh, that one's the worst.
So
You may not like them, but you love them.
yeah, you love them. No, and a lot of times you do like them. I'm not the model for every family.
Oh, no, I know.
So you love them, and you want to be there for them, and you want to be a certain way, you want to make them proud, there are all of those things. So it's therefore the most important space, I think, for us as fatsos, who are aware fatsos, woke fatsos, so-called, or who are talking about fat liberation and fat acceptance and so on and so forth, to really prepare ourselves to navigate the world of family.
Absolutely.
Because there's no getting away from it.
There isn't.
There's no getting away from it. And also, the thing is that all your wonderful occasions in life, right, are the ones you'll spend with family.
Yeah.
So if you don't find a way of navigating family, either educating them and letting them know that this is, what the world is all about, and these are the myths, and therefore these are your choices, and, get them on board with your choices, or find a way of making sure that they stay out of your space, and leave you alone. Every occasion will be marred with this whole fat phobic thing. So how do you have celebratory occasions at all,
like,
right?
I want to get all dressed up. Oh, but you can't wear this dress. You look fat. Oh, look at that. Don't eat your birthday cake. Don't have sweets. Don't eat the puris. Like, guys, please, can we just stop with all of this?
Yeah, so you don't want that happening to you. I mean, what kind of life is that if your fun occasions are where you know you're going to get trampled upon, right, by fat phobia? So it's so important to navigate them because of that. And the other side of it is that they are the ones you're going to go to when you're vulnerable, the most vulnerable. So again, if you, any movement into fat liberation and fat acceptance requires that we find a way to navigate family.
Yeah, you may not bring them around, but you have to find a way to be able to handle the gigantic intersectional clusterfuck that they are.
Yes. So we have chosen a difficult subject today.
If we don't choose difficult subject, are we? I mean, to be fair, I feel like it's a bit much for me to be sitting here shitting on family because I've been really blessed. I do have the occasional psycho aunt or uncle, but who doesn't, right? In terms of my immediate family, sure, my sister and I have had years when we barely talked and years when we were super close and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, my family has been pretty good. I've been very lucky. They've always eventually turned around and supported me, even if they thought I was being a fucking idiot. And even when they were right about my being a fucking idiot, they've been like kind enough not to rub my face in it. So I've been super, super lucky when it came to my family, right? Because fundamentally, they're not abusive or manipulative emotionally or physically. And they accept my personhood. They accept that I am an individual who is different and separate from them, connected to them, born of them, and yet I am allowed to be myself. And that's a really, really important thing. In fact, I feel many of us, sorry, little tangent. Many of us, find it very hard to let people who we care about be themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, but I know what's best for you, bro. That's fine. But that's because you think I should do this, and so you're telling me what to do. But I don't want to do that. Or maybe I do. I don't know. But that has for me to figure out, So yeah, they really respect my personhood. They don't always agree with my choices, but they accept that it is my right to have them. But of course, it wasn't always like this. I mean, we have worked on our stuff. It's never been super bad or torturous or traumatic, but they have done things. Like my mother would steal food from my plate, especially French fries and stuff. Now, she did it as a sort of... She was also struggling to figure out how to help this child of hers live a more active life, make more healthy choices. She didn't understand. My mother is not as emotional a person as I am. I recently discovered how to describe my emotions from my 6-year-old niece, who says, I have big feelings.
Aww.
That's me. I have big feelings. When I feel big and strong and wide. And then I've worked so hard to impose intellectual control over those, which comes with its own set of consequences. But that's not what this episode is about. So...
As I realized yesterday morning when we were doing a particular goal setting session.
This woman, no, I swear, guys, Pallavi is taking over my life.
Oh my God, what a good life you're having.
Where I do all the driving and the door opening and the fetching and carrying. Anyway, back to focus. So, essentially, she would try to be like, make a joke out of it. Come, share your food. But in my head, I was like, I get only so much French fries. And then you're taking it away, and I love French fries, and I don't know when I'll get them again, and it's such a big deal for me to get them. So you're reducing what I have. And that's not fair. And it became like this thing. And I became obsessively, jealously refusing to share food. Then obviously the whole family would everybody extended family keeps stealing my French fries. And it would make me super upset. And nobody understood why it made me so upset. They just thought I was being a spoiled brat who didn't want to share. And where do you think I understood this at the age of 8, right? I understand it now.
Poor baby.
And my mother, who loves to exercise, my sister loves to exercise. I like to exercise, guys, especially for exercise sake. She tried so hard to get me to do stuff to jolly me along, but it didn't take, right? And then it became a thing where I knew she really wanted me to do this thing I didn't want to do. I got really resentful of it. So anytime she mentioned it, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do it. And that becomes an issue again. So it started establishing some patterns. My father used to try and bribe me. He told me that at some point, I had used to lose 12 kilos. Gosh, remember when that was the highly achievable amount?
Wow.
And he was like, he promised me one Barbie doll a kilo. My mother was horrified, but it didn't work. That's the thing. And my father used to discover these fad diets and then do them himself. Like he did Herbalife, he did protein power, he did something else. And then he'd say, oh, now you do this. So he would read something. He still subscribes to these utterly nonsense, this supplement will change your life. Then you have to watch 1.5 hour long video. Then you have to pay like $100 and get the supplement. And then he'll send me the mail. And then I'll patiently write him a reply saying, Appa, this stuff is all hogwash. It doesn't work. But this is how much it concerns him, right? So that was his way of trying to do it. And honestly, it was much less intrusive. But what happened was I never wanted to eat a meal around my family. Because there will always be some, how much rice are you having? How much ghee are you having? How much aplam are you having? And the thing is, I also know that it goes very much against the grain for my mother to restrict people when it comes to food and stuff like that. So it must have been very hard for her too. But eventually it was a really bad place. Like I didn't want to be eating around them. I'd get so angry when they asked me any questions. They would call me on the phone, like after I moved out and I lived by myself, and I'd be like, have you worked out today? What did you eat today? And I'm like, why do you keep asking me these questions? And then it was just like, I like talking to you guys on the phone, but then you want to talk about this shit. I don't want to do this. So at one point I told my father he's only allowed to ask me about diet and exercise once a week. And I'll respond politely and kindly. But if you ask me again, I'll be like, sorry, week's quota is over. Next subject. And he accepts it. I mean, he doesn't like it. But he really does accept it. So the other thing my father did was get obsessed with bariatric surgery. Because his older brother, who's much older than him, and has been diabetic for like 50 years, had bariatric surgery to lose weight for his diabetes. And my father got obsessed with it. He was like, bariatric surgery, bariatric surgery, bariatric surgery. And I was just like, oh God. And then he was like, just go and talk to the doctor once. So I went and met this doctor. And I may or may not have mentioned this before on the podcast. But this doctor is like, oh, you know what? Here's the most invasive kind of bariatric surgery where they basically cut off most of your stomach. Here's the next one where they temporarily tie off some of it. And here's the least one where they put a silicone bag in your tummy that they inflate. And I was like, okay, look at me. I'm 32 years old. I'm perfectly healthy. All my indicators are fine. He's going to tell me to do this. He's like, no, we'll cut off most of your stomach. And I was like, are you insane? And I just left that place and I was like, this is ridiculous. I cannot believe this is true. And I told my father, no, I'm not doing it. And then he'd just keep bringing it up. And I'd be like, no, I won't do it. I understand going to surgery if I am at a point where I need. It's like telling somebody to have surgery. Like if I actually take a blood test and I have that breast cancer gene, okay, double mastectomy, cool. I'm not going to do a double mastectomy because I might have the cancer gene. Why would you ask me to cut off my stomach because I might need to be thinner in the future? Also, let's not forget that plenty of evidence indicates that bariatric surgery does not actually make much of a difference after a point because your body just goes by to its own habits. It's just that you need to vomit more. So, so all of this happened. But then the thing is, after a point, again, I appreciate my family for this. They started accepting, okay, you're an adult, fine, we'll listen to you. So they stopped asking about this stuff. And my sister really stood up for me. With my dad about a lot of this stuff. Like I would tell her and she's like, I would talk to him. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'm handling it right now. But she always turned around and done that. And the last time I saw her in 2019, we were talking, again, he brought up bariatric surgery. And my sister was like, this is nonsense. You probably have a metabolic disorder. Like, do you eat 5,000 calories a day? I'm like, there may be in the day that I do, sure, but I don't usually. She's like, yeah, you exercise 3 days a week properly. It's obviously something that's in your body. It's not like you're not trying. So this is stupid. And I was just like, I didn't realize in the time how much it validated me to hear her say that, because also she's an immunologist and she works in this space, so she knows what she's talking about. She's not like just saying stuff. So it took a lot of work, but eventually they've all come around. And my father, after I sent him Jason Fung's book, has completely stopped talking about bariatric surgery. He asked me about, when is your lunch? What is your eating window? Sometimes he gets a little horrified when I'm at home. He's like, "You can eat that." I'm like, "Yes, it's in my eating window. I can eat anything in my eating window. So if I want to eat murku, I'm eating murku. Would you like some?" Then he goes like, "Oh, no, 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 no," and then he goes. But fundamentally, I'm at peace and I know I have their love and support. And that is immensely, immensely valuable. And I feel very bad having talked about all of this because I know what's coming next.
The opposite.
The opposite.
No, but it's, it's, I think one of the things that you've said has actually triggered a memory, because every diet that I would get on, my mother would get on the same diet because she was perennially wanting to lose weight. And there was always this, I can only wear these pants when I'm thin, and I can only, that sari I wore the other day when we went out, and
The
I was
red
like,
one.
this is my grandmother's sari and all that.
That I tore.
Oh, come on, don't be silly, it'll get rough food. She would say, I can only wear this sari when I'm really thin, which is one of the reasons why I needed to get that sari from her and wear it on my body. And, flaunt it and say, hey, this is how good I look in it.
It's a freaking gorgeous red chiffon sari. And I feel like we'll definitely post a picture.
Yeah, we've posted a picture of my Chandni moment.
Oh,
in
yeah,
that
the
sari.
Chandni sari. That sari, the Chandni sari.
So and so she would get on this diet and with me, and she would always have less weight to lose than me. And so she would lose the weight really fast while I'm still struggling on the diet, and I've lost maybe as much or a little more than her in the same amount of time. And then I'm continuing to struggle with the diet where she is going and showing off to all her friends and saying, I got onto this diet with Pallavi and look, I've become so slim, and everyone's appreciating her and admiring her, and I'm on the side. I've also lost that amount of weight, but I'm not getting any of that recognition because I still have 10 more to lose. And it was always that, irrespective of how hard I worked on dieting and exercising and doing all of that, there was always 10 more kilos to lose.
God,
And then
yes.
there was always 20 more kilos to lose. And now, we can't even count because I'm a whole person more.
Oh, God.
So it's just that I don't know how they would even understand their responsibility. Because clearly she was fat phobic in her head, and she was fat phobic about herself, and I was just a projection of her fat phobia, and there was nothing I could do to be good enough ever for her. The other very interesting thing that I realized when I was preparing for this episode was because I was trying to think back about, what happened and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that my parents completely stopped talking about my weight and dieting and anything the moment I got married.
Huh.
Yeah. And I suddenly realized that. And I remember something my mom said last year about how I got the bigger room in the house. This house we'd moved into like 5 years before I got married. Because she knew that after all, I would leave to get married. So I was not really off the house. She said this to the girl who is my friend, who was doing our interiors at that time, the cupboards and stuff like that for me to move in. She literally said that, she got this room because that girl said, Auntie, how did you give her the master bedroom, please? So she's like, but I knew she would go to her own house like once she got married. My jaw dropped. This is an educated, highly educated woman who's worked in American companies, in abroad, whatever, even if it was Africa, with, she's exposed, she's educated. She was so particular about my education. She would keep telling me, you need to work in blue chip companies and earn money, and you can hire people to do your work for you. You do not need to go into the kitchen. She never taught me how to cook. She taught me how to clean, because then when the maid wasn't there, she didn't have to clean. But she never taught me how to cook, because every time I'd go into the kitchen, she said, no, this is not your place. Your place is to study and da 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 da. But she also had this belief system that ye parai, ye parai hai, right? I mean, that's what they say, that she's not ours. She will go to someone else. And, that whole thing of, I was like, when I was preparing, I realized that, actually, after I got married, my dad would say, my God, what a beautiful child we have created. Before, I was not beautiful. What happened?
God. Society, my God, society is the worst.
Anyway, this may be a tangent. But I mean, I would steal food from as young as 3 years of age.
Of course, so did I. Yeah. I used to steal money and buy chocolate.
Yeah, I never. But I would steal food. My brother was 1.5 years old or whatever, 2 years old or whatever. He was skinny. He would play all the time. He had fantastic, and he never wanted to eat. He didn't like food. And he would get all the butter and the ice cream and the dahi and the milk and all of these things which I loved. And I would get boiled vegetables. As a 5-year-old, I had boiled vegetables. I had rationed 2 chapatis. No butter, no dahi, no ice cream. I used to steal food.
Yeah.
What will you do when you're 5 years old?
And also, my God, the consequence this must have had on your bone structure and your muscle development.
God knows.
Oof.
Touch wood, I seem to be quite healthy and well. So, something must have worked. And then I still remember, I'm going on a rant, I guess, but I still remember when I was on this American Weight Watchers diet, and I loved it because I had chicken or fish every meal. And it was rationed for me. Only I had chicken or fish every meal. So it was like, yeah, I get back at all of my brothers eating his butter and this thing because he's not getting that chicken or fish. But and I lost a lot of weight on that diet, and it was a healthy diet. I mean, somehow it was healthier than the previous diets I'd been on. I was 14. Okay, I'm talking about that age.
Fuck.
But I had 10 kilos to lose again. I was doing calisthenics. Jane Fonda's 1.5 hour video every single day. I would do diligently because I loved it. I loved that video. Okay, I still remember it. I still remember some of the exercises. I loved it.
Instagram video coming up of Pallavi doing this.
Okay, I was 75 kilos when I used to do it then.
Who cares?
Anyway, I plateaued. It wasn't coming off, irrespective of the exercise. And then I remember my mother catching hold of me by my shoulder, shaking me. And this was in the middle of the corridor of our house. Okay, it's not even like it was, I was walking to my room from the dining room, and she saw me and she caught hold of me and she shook me physically. And she says, "You wretch, you don't understand how much we have spent on you in this last year for you to lose weight. Do you know how much it has cost us to give you chicken and fish at every meal? And you ungrateful, blah, blah, blah. You're not losing weight. You're not getting thin. You must be doing something wrong." And obviously by now I was sobbing because this came out of the blue. And I was feeling so good about myself because I was finally looking like a slim person. And I was feeling good about myself because I was exercising and I was dieting and I was being good. I was really being good. And I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know how I dealt with that situation. I swear to you, I think my younger self was far more resilient and capable than I am today. Because if something happens like that today to me, I don't think I'd be able to handle it.
What do you mean handle it? If something like that happens to you today, you'll turn around and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Of course, I'd probably give it
So that's called handling. And that's called resilience.
But come on, at 14 you cannot handle it that way, right?
Yeah, so there is no resilience.
So, and
there is no handling.
I went back to all my bad behavior. After that incident,
correct. What
I
else
went
would
back
you
to
do?
stealing food. I stopped being able to exercise. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, why would you?
And you see, it's only after many, many years that I can put 2 and 2 together and figure out what happened.
Yeah.
So my parents were bad enough. After that, it was my husband who told me, well, before I want to marry you, I love you, I know we'll be happy together. But before I introduce you to my parents, you have to lose 10 kilos, which I did.
I know.
And then he introduced me to his parents. And then they were like, oh my God, why did you have to find the fattest girl in the world to marry? She won't be able to climb the stairs, da-da-da. Before you get married to her, she has to lose 10 kilos. And I did. I lost 10 more kilos before I got married. And then once I got married, I don't know what happened. My weight just ballooned. I know what happened now. Set weight, hormonal changes, so many other things, right? That must have happened. Stress, etc., etc. I went on this crazy diet of eating some kind of roti. I don't even remember the name of the diet. But I continued my good behavior until I found that my mother-in-law...
Good in quotes, guys.
Yeah, good behavior. Listen, good fatty behavior, okay? I don't think that was good behavior.
I know,
in
I
any
just
way.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, good you did. And until I realized 6-7 months into the whole thing that my mother-in-law was putting a karchi of ghee into all my sabzis. And I was like, why are you putting ghee in my sabzis? Like, I'm supposed to have 1 spoon of oil, right? That's what they tell you. Make all your sabzis in 1 spoon of oil. And she's like, ghee, nothing happens with ghee. You can have ghee. So I was like, okay, like, and I was we were working in Noida. We were traveling from Gurgaon to Noida to work. So there was no question of me cooking my own food. So she was the one doing it. And I left at 8 o'clock in the morning, came back at 8 in the evening. I never saw her cook.
Yeah.
I didn't know the taste of ghee because I'd never really had ghee.
Oh God, you're breaking my heart now.
And I actually thought the food was horrible. Like, I was like, why is the food tasting so bad? You know? And here I find that this is what's happening. And I was like, what do you expect then? I'm supposedly on a diet, which has worked for me, and I've lost 20 kilos before I got married. All of a sudden, I've gained 10 kilos in the last 6 months. And you're behind me saying, what are you doing wrong? What are you doing wrong? Why are you... You're putting a karchi of ghee in my food every day.
Oh God, people.
Such crazy things. Anyway, but these stories I can continue forever, right? My husband would keep bringing it up over and over again about how I need to lose weight and how he would help me and so on and so forth. And I will talk about the healing later, which came from the body positivity and stuff like that. But what was really interesting to me, Maya, was that there was a period of time where my family stopped talking about weight. But when I started doing the podcast, it just... nobody could deal with it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I will tell you things later. But anyway, what was your... Let me stop.
Healing, I mean... I think for me, the first step of healing was demanding the space to come to terms with the shit myself, right? And again, I had nowhere near the kind of horrible environment that you did. But even then, I needed to be away from them. Yeah. I needed to be out of surveillance, as it were. Even if the surveillance was not really hardcore and all, but I needed to be able to do these things quietly by myself, to figure out a lot of this, and it took years and years and years and years to unpack all of these things around food and stuff like that. So yeah, not being home helped a lot. Living in New York helped a lot. Again, because I could eat French fries and drink wine and nobody cared what I was doing or watched what I was doing. But yeah, I lived on the 3rd floor. I took the subway everywhere. I walked everywhere. I ate like mad, but I used to go dancing once a week. And I had a very active life. And that's the lowest weight I've been in the last... doing maths in head, 2008. So that's the lowest weight in maybe the last 17, 18 years. Right? As in, I lost weight in New York. So, okay, 20 years. Aram se is the lowest weight I've been. And like... it was amazing to me because I was living my best life. #. And I was managing to lose the weight and it was incredible. And then I came back to India and I was like, oh, everything went puss again, right? But what happened was also, I mean, once I broke out of all of this, once I started finding my own rhythm of exercise that I like to do, not going and doing, like I cannot stand being on a treadmill. Or an elliptical trainer or a bicycle or any of those stupid pointless stay in one place and like, no. Do not ask me to go for a walk. Ask me to walk to work? Sure. Assuming it's possible. I will. Right? But don't ask me to go for a walk. I can't do this mindless stuff. There needs to be some goal out of it because I've realized because for whatever reason, for my endorphin release to happen, I need to get a really high intensity workout. So very few workouts actually give me the high. And of course, as addictive creatures, humans, we do stuff for the high, no? So I had to figure out what the deal was with me and food. It took a while. And then when I started doing therapy and stuff like that, in 2013-14 is when I really started coming around to understanding my emotional eating, how much love, how much I felt comfort came out of eating and food, and how complicated it was with that, how complicated my own feelings of my own self with my weight were, in the sense that I'm single because I'm fat. But what if I lose the weight and nobody wants to be with me? Then it was me that's the problem and I can't blame the fat. Right? So in some ways, being fat was an excuse for me to not have to try. Not just about dating, about many things. But in actual fact, it's not. You can do anything you want to do. You just have to work at it. You may have to work a little harder, a little longer, but it's possible. So I had to learn all of these things. And, it was like, sorry, one second. Very big thing I had to learn was not to refuse to do something just because my family suggested it. Because that's also a reaction, like that resentful reaction of, oh, you keep telling me what to do, you don't think I'm good enough, so I'm not going to do it to spite you. And sometimes what they tell you to do is good and you want to do it, but you're still like, no, I will cut off my nose to spite my face. I won't do it because you are telling me to do it. So I had to learn to get over all of that shit as well. And I found that actually I have a rhythm of exercise. I have a rhythm of eating and stuff that works for me. And yes, there are times when I indulge and there are all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've written a whole blog post about compulsive eating and things like that. So it happens. But learning to recognize all of these things is deeply, deeply valuable. Because it sort of makes me feel like, okay, there's a reason for this. I'm not a lazy slob who has no self-control. I mean, of course, I'm also sometimes a lazy slob who has no self-control, but that's got nothing to do with this. Right. So eventually just reading and learning about health at every size, about intermittent fasting, getting my father to read all of this stuff, talking about this stuff with my family. And in some ways, the podcast, I've seen... And my mother doesn't really listen to it because audio is not something she consumes, but she loves our blog. She likes to have these conversations with us. And as I talk to them about these things, they listen to me. And I really value that, right? And of course, giving Jason fund to my dad has been great because he's like, stop the bariatric surgery chant now. But yeah, I mean, learning to draw those boundaries with my family and with extended family and other people as well. Reaching the point where I'm like, no, sorry. Not going to put up with your shit. Right?
Yeah.
Not going to put up with your Not going to put up with your shit. And you just have to deal with it. And being able to stand strong over there. But again, this is not like I woke up one day and said, I will be this. No. It took a lot of therapy. It took a lot of learning to believe in myself, which is also undoing the constant messaging. You get that as a fat person, you are useless, stupid, value, you know the drill, guys. So all of that, it's a sort of, I hate this word, it's a holistic thing. Everything has to happen together. One bit of it alone won't help. So getting to the stage where you can be comfortable with yourself, accept yourself, all your virtues and your faults. You're accepting your own faults is very important, right?
True.
Because then you know the parameters and then you can try and say, okay, in these parameters, what can I do? Okay, so Pallavi, tell me about your healing.
Healing, my God. Well, clearly all of it hasn't happened considering I just stumbled upon this memory.
I mean...
There's plenty. Anyway, but for me, I think healing happened in 3 phases. One was where I stepped into the whole body positivity thing and my photographs were coming in newspapers and magazines and stuff. And everyone was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. Like, look at her. I think one of the things I have always been known for in my family is that if I put my mind to something, if I decide I want something, I get it done. That was something that everybody always said about me because of, I remember when I told my mother, I will not do sciences in the 10th class and I will do accounts and or commerce, whatever it was called. And it worked out really well. And then I remember when we were applying for colleges, I only applied to LSR, Stephens, SRCC, and I think one more. That's it. So after LSR, I was very clear I was only going to get into the IIMs.
And you did it?
And I did. Then I was very clear I wanted to do HR and I did well, irrespective of the fact that nobody does HR after an IIM. So there was this thing in my family that if Pallavi sets her mind to do something, she gets it done. So when, irrespective of being a fat woman, I got into newspapers and magazines and stuff like that, it was that look at her. If she decides she wants to do something, she will do it. So that was the first step of healing where when I stepped into that body positivity world and they saw all this external validation, they were like, whoa, like, go girl. Okay. But the thing was, inside me, I was still not okay because I still had that whole, but what about my health thing? Right? That was, it went on for me. So then when I went for the walk and nobody in the whole universe that I was in thought it was possible for me to do that walk. everybody was like, you're the kind of person who, when she decides to do something, does it. But I think even this might be impossible for you. This is what they said when I went for that Kedarnath trek also and managed to do it and so on and so forth. But they were like, this walk, no, there's no way. And I did fail. The first couple of times I went, I had blisters. I twisted my ankle. I did fail the first couple of times. But I trained, and kudos to my husband, because by now, with the whole body positivity thing, he had sort of shifted.
Yeah.
Of course, we were having other issues as well by then, but he had sort of shifted. And he helped me train for the walk. Like, he'd go with me every morning, walk with me 1.5 hours at my pace. We'd cover, 8-10 kilometers in that 1.5 hours. He would, show me how to, speed up, blah, blah, blah. So he helped me train. And then when I actually started walking 30 kilometers, and I actually went for 2 months and did 30 kilometers every day for 65 days, everyone was like, whoa, something's happening here, which is different. Which is when I read Hayes. And I literally sat everybody down, ek karke, like one by one. So it was mainly my mother and my best friend and Anil that I had to do this with. And I sat them all down and I explained to them what the research was, what I've understood, how my body works, what I've seen in my body, how I've used food to heal my body. So everything that I'd done till then, which I'd never shared with anybody till then, because I just thought everyone would dismiss me, I shared with them. And that's when there was peace. So that was, I think, the second phase of healing. My third phase of healing has definitely been the podcast. But that was healing and not healing, because I think the podcast was too rad for my family. My mother has only heard the first episode, and the only thing she called up to say was that Ameya is taking too much airspace. And I was like, Mom, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Now just shut up. And she's not listened to any other episode after that.
Or then she would know how quickly the tables were turned.
Doesn't even matter. I
know it doesn't matter.
It's such a silly thing. But that's her, right?
Yeah.
Constant competition. And my Mamaji, because my Mamajis also, when they then travel to India, I explained to them, because they, at least one set of them, I have 2 Mamajis and their wives. One set of them also have constantly dieting and stuff like that. So I explained the whole thing to them. They were like, but okay, at least they heard me through. So he listened to the podcast and he called me up and he says, I'm sorry, I'm not your target audience. So I've listened to 1 episode. Now I'm not listening anymore. And my other Mamaji said, oh my God, obviously you guys are doing well because you seem to be blowing up my feed. Like every day I get up in the morning and I see Pallavi on my feed and talking about a fat. But you seem to have a lot of anger about your childhood. And I was like, dude. And I was like, does it occur to you that maybe I have processed the anger and therefore I'm willing to talk about it now? Maybe whatever. Anyway, so I think it just broke them. That I was being so rad about being fat. Nevertheless, whatever my family may have reacted to, the healing happened for me.
Correct.
And that is what was important.
That's really true. So, let's talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we have used in getting friends and family to shut the fuck up about this stuff. I mean, rule number 1 for this and all difficult conversations, whether it's I don't want to get married or I don't want to be an engineer or I want to live in another city or whatever, don't have the conversation when you're upset. See, because when you're in a place that is emotionally problematic with a person who you have this very intricate, complex relationship with, it's impossible not to be hurtful when your parent hurts you. Even though, because fundamentally on some level, they're your parent, they're not supposed to hurt you. So that's why also they end up having so much power over us, right? So don't have the conversation in that moment. They say something hurtful and fatphobic, take a deep breath, walk away. Right? Have the conversation, but not then.
Yeah.
And remember that they are also people. And however much we idolize our parents, they are people. They can be wrong. They can fuck up. They can be stupid. They can be cruel. Not all the time, but these are all facets of humanity. And at the end of the day, your parents are also people. Your siblings, your husband, your children, they're all also people. So they do and they say stupid things just like you do. Right? So we all do that. If your family guilt trips you, take a deep breath, walk away. And then this is how you deal with it. When they say hurtful things, when they guilt trip you, you come back later in the evening or another time and you say, you remember when you said that you're so worried about my weight, you think I'll never get married. It was really hurtful for me to hear. Because you see, no, wait, hear me out. Because you see, what I heard was that you think that I'm not worthy of being married if I'm not thin. That the only thing that is invaluable for me in marriage is my body. That my personality, my brains, anything else that I might have to offer has no value. That's what it sounds like you think. And that's what it, and how do you think it makes me feel when my own mother, father, sister, uncle, aunt, grandmother thinks that I'm worthless? Then how can I expect anybody else to think that I have any worth? Normally, with most people, they will be like, oh my God, no, what are you saying? I don't mean that. I think you're amazing, but society is so fucked up. Oh my God, no, it's not. I think you're wonderful, but people. Then you turn around and you say that, listen, sure, people are messed up. I'm not interested in people. People don't live in my house. People don't have close relationships with me. It's when you have a close relationship with me, when you know me, all of me, and you say that you love me, and you say something like that to me, then I feel like I should believe you. What does some random person on the road know about me? They don't know me. Right? So you say stuff like, oh my God, I will have a heart attack if you don't lose weight. You really want to die because I won't lose weight? Are you want to tell me that my body is killing you? Are you saying that your child is killing you? You have to say it in those very harsh terms. And they'll swear themselves blue in the face that that's not what they mean. And I'm sure it's kind of not what they mean. But it's when you flip it on them, that's when they realize actually the way it sounds. And that's the thing. And probably you won't get a change in behavior immediately. But if you can consistently do this, you might be surprised. And then if they don't listen, this is my favorite part. If they don't listen, you say, stop. I don't want to talk about this anymore. We don't agree. They will continue to talk about it. Stop. I told you I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's talk about something else. They keep going. Okay, clearly you don't want to talk about anything else. I don't want to talk about this. So why are we talking? Bye, walk away. Horror, shock, anger. Do it twice. They'll start respecting it. Because see, the thing is, what Dan Savage says, what we forget with our parents, we have power in that relationship too. You see, because we want them in our lives, but they want us in their lives. So we can walk away from them and remind them that if you want me in your life, you have to respect me.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like I'm advocating, like abandon your parents and never speak to them, anything like that. But remind your parents that you are also a person, you have boundaries and you have a right to respect and so on and so forth. And I mean, remember that it's not personal. Okay? It is personal, obviously, because they're talking about your person, but it's also not. Because these are also people who are products of a fat-phobic world. For all that I get really high blood pressure and grind my teeth when I hear Pallavi talk about her mother, there's a part of me that's almost crying because I'm like, how much was this woman herself abused to have become like this? Right? So on some place, you have to find that compassion for them as well. And remember, when you're getting overwhelmed, it's okay to walk away. You're allowed to demand space for yourself. You're allowed to demand time for yourself. You're allowed to think that people are wrong and stupid. You're even allowed to tell them, though I would recommend not telling them. That's not a great way to broker a peaceful relationship. And you try and help them get better. And if they don't learn, you are not obliged to continue to play their game. Yeah. You don't have to play their game. That's the important thing. And of course, it's okay to take a break from fighting. It's okay to be tired and sad. It's okay to cut everyone slack, including yourself. You are also conditioned to be fat-phobic. Don't forget.
Yeah. Brilliant, Mia.
Thank you.
I think what I would say is that when we have these conversations, it's very important to have these conversations as a way of informing the other person, not as a way of changing them. Because the moment you start having a conversation with anybody about anything with an agenda that I want to change the other person, that's where you get all of the resistance.
Correct.
But if you can find a way of sitting them down and saying, look, this is something I need to tell you about what I have figured out and how I feel. And I want you to know because I really love you. And I know you love me and are very concerned about me. So I just want you to know this. I think that sort of reduces the resistance. So of course, one will have different conversations one has, and some of them will be handled the way you speak about them. Some of them need to be handled just from this very objective, I would like to inform you.
Yeah, and that's what I mean also in the sense that when I say, turn around and say, when you say this is what I hear.
Yeah.
It's part of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not like you said something to hurt my feelings. No, it's like, look, this is what it looks like on my side of the table.
Right.
And I know you want to know this. So are you sure this is what you want me to know? You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel that first do your own research. Really do your own research, because, you know, your parents and people who are close to you will ask you all kinds of questions. And they really believe they're doing the best for you. So they will ask you the questions that will trip you up. There's no doubt about it. So do your research. Take the printouts if you have to. Have the book handy if you have to. Write things down. Script it. You know?
Make notes, yeah.
Make notes. And refer to them, because you are not an expert. You have read the experts and you have experimented on yourself to some extent, and you are thinking about this as a way of living. So, you know, do all of that. It's not silly. It doesn't mean that you are not aware. It's just that you are prepared.
Correct.
Yeah. And just understand that their reactions may not be healing. The first time you have the conversation, the reaction may not be a healing reaction to you. It may be a very triggering, very harsh reaction that you have to handle. But the point is, you will have many conversations. It is not one conversation that is going to change.
Correct. You'll have to have this conversation over and over again.
Yeah. And I think what's important is that sometimes you may think, yaar, why go through all that hassle? Sab theek chal raha hai na. Handle ho gaya. ठीक है, थोड़े से jokes ही तो सुनने पड़ते हैं मुझे.
Yeah, you can have to listen to some jokes and some fun poking.
Thank you for the translation. I was just about to do it. I was like, Anyway, but then you have to understand that I think the question that I feel is important is to ask yourself, do I hide who I am amongst the people who are closest to me just because I don't want to have a difficult conversation with them? You know?
I'm sorry, you're basically describing every Indian child with every Indian parent about everything. From I smoke, I eat meat, I drink, I don't drink, I smoke joints, I don't. Bhai, I talk to boys, I don't talk to boys, I wear short skirts, I wear makeup, I talk to girls. Anyway, sorry.
I agree, but the thing is that all of those things, as I always say, our fat is hanging out there
Fully
for
agreed.
everybody to see.
Fully agreed.
No, I get the joke. I get the humor. It's just that is something that, you know, they will never see maybe if you don't talk about it to them. So they will never shame you for it. This is something that everybody, their aunts, their uncles, their distant cousins and, you know, so on, no blood relative, etc. will also see. And everybody shits on you for it.
Yeah.
You know, so which is why this is something which really shadows you. At least for me, it really shadowed me. It really made me a non-person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in my family, etc. And that is why I had to have, and that's what I think that, you know, if you're not being yourself around your family and your friend, your closest people, and if it bothers you, then have the difficult conversation. Have one, have two, have three. Maybe at some point you stop. But the thing is that I tell myself, like, I've had to walk away from my family for many things, not just because of weight, right? But weight was a big thing of what upset me, which they've never been able to understand. And clearly I thought they'd understood, but they stopped understanding again when I became too radical about it in their minds. And at least I know that I sat them down and I explained things to them. I told them what it was all about. You know, I mean, please, I'm not giving this advice as this happened and then I had to walk out of my family. No, there were too many other things.
There were a lot of things, guys.
Yeah. It's just that today, if anybody asks me, did you try? Yes, I did my best.
Yes.
You know, I have a clear conscience. And I think that's important.
100%.
You know? So I think the tip I'm trying to give is basically do your research. Be very clear. Do your preparation. Have the difficult conversation and then leave it.
Yeah, there's nothing more you can do than that.
If it goes well, brilliant. If it doesn't go well, you've done your bit.
Yeah, and then you can politely say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about this, and hang up the phone.
Correct.
And you're done. And they'll be like, you hung up on me? Well, yes, I tried to tell you 3 times, I don't want to talk about this. Apparently, you didn't want to talk about anything else. So there we go.
And if you need help to get these conversations, get that help.
Get that help. Yes, get that help. Indeed. And that's it for now. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Substack, and Gmail using Fatso Podcast. This episode was recorded in a charming little homestay near Bhimtal. It will be edited by me, of course. Our music was done by Anant, our logo by Yash, and we're still waiting for Suraj to come back to Delhi so we can have that second photo shoot. As always, guys, thanks for listening.
Bye.